Thanks so much, Sebastian. Hello to everyone. Igama lam nguNoncedo. I am a Black queer a young activist from South Africa, and I'm really honored and excited to be moderating one of our first sort of public expressions as this community of young folk that want to do some really important things over the next period. So welcome to everyone. There are over 100 folks that have said, look, we're joining you today from over 45 different countries across the globe. And I think that in itself expresses or affirms rather the moment that we're in to speak truth to sort of the thematics or the theme of our conference today. I want to reflect a little bit. I've got like 2 minutes to do this, but just a must that there's no better time, I think, for this group or this collective, the Global Students Forum, to come together as young folk, inspired by the activity and rigor, I think, of a youth-defined politics and movement and emergent rights of the last couple of years. And so having legitimate, grassrooted, democratic, and mostly independent student unions and structures and formations and movements coming together like this from different parts of the world, but and not surprisingly, having the same sort of major issues that they want to confront meant it was important for something like the Global Students Forum to come together and for us to put our weight behind building something that we can in fact really give truth to the meaning or the sense around international and global solidarity in our lifetimes at least, and affect change in our communities on a local level, regionally and globally. So it's a real honor. It's an exciting time, and I'm glad that folks in South Africa as well are able to bear witness and be part of this kind of occasion and this movement. So without talking too long, I want to introduce the speakers of our first sort of discussion and conversation. And I frame it this way because I'm hoping that we'll have a back and forth around the concepts we're going to be grappling with, the issues that affect us, how we come to them, the lens that we're using, and folks that are then on the call joining us as well, as sort of an audience, will be able to do a back and forth with us as well. So we've got 6 people coming from 5 major regional students organizations that are part of the Global Students Forum. And I'm hoping that folk can come in then and introduce yourselves. So I'll use first names, and then as people come on, they'll formally introduce themselves and tell us where they're from as well. So maybe we'll start off with Peter.
Hi, I'm Peter Gracie Koji. I'm the Secretary General of the All Africa Students Union. It's the regional body that represents all the umbrella organizations in Africa. We have membership across the 54 African countries, and membership spans from primary schools to the tertiary institutions across the African continent. Yeah, thank you very much, and I'm happy to be part of the panel.
Viva. And then Alex.
Hello, thank you for the invitation. I'm so thankful for being here. My name is Alexandra Seibal, and today I'm speaking on behalf of the board of the Organizing Bureau of European School Student Unions, short OBESU.
Thank you very much. Maisha?
Hi, everyone. My name is Maisha, and I'm the chairperson of the Commonwealth Students Association. We're an umbrella body that represents the national student organizations across the 54 Commonwealth countries. I'm really happy to be here, and I look forward to today's discussions.
Thank you. Georgia?
Hi everyone, I'm Georgia from the 100 Million campaign, an ally, but not a official student body or student movement, and we work with the regional member platforms here today. In fact, they govern us, they're our trustees, alongside a number of the national student unions to work on child and youth rights.
Thank you. And Goha?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Gohar Hovanesyan, originally a student from Armenia, and now I have the honor to be the president of the European Students' Union that represents about 20 million students through our membership of the National Student Union from 40 European countries. So yeah, it's truly an exciting experience to come together with all of you today in this very significant day. And also it's great to see very familiar faces. So very much looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Hugh.
Hello, everyone. Like Georgia, I'm an ally rather than a representative of a student platform, but hopefully a lifelong student as well. I work for the Open Society Foundations, which is a funding organization which has been very privileged to be supporting and have been inspired by your work and this movement to put everyone together for the last almost 18 months now or so. So very privileged to be here, and thank you very much for including us.
Thank you so much for being here. It's an interesting panel. So I hope everyone's excited. I want to start us off immediately, and I want to start off with Maisha. And I just want to ask about sort of the significance that you feel or hold around the 17th of November.
Thank you so much. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. As I introduced myself earlier, my name is Dr. Maisha Reza. I'm the chairperson of the Commonwealth Students Association. So the CSA, we're a coalescence of student organizations within the Commonwealth. We were established in 2012 at the 18th CCEM, which is the Conference of Commonwealth Education Ministers meetings. Our role is to be an independent advocate for students throughout the Commonwealth. We bring forth student concerns at the forefront of educational development, and we form the bridges between national student organizations and education ministers on the Commonwealth platform, focusing on empowering and building the capacity of these organizations and students' unions. So today is a very important day. As Gohar mentioned, we celebrate International Students' Day together. We celebrate the power and revolution that students standing in solidarity have made in the past, pushing for revolutionary changes, leading by example, mobilizing communities for progress and prosperity. And we also honor student leaders that sacrifice their time and put their heart, their blood and tears into movements to push for agendas to make learning and thriving better for all students. So student movements in different countries and different regions have varying priorities actually, but we are all bound with the same string. And that string ensures that every child, every student, every young person, regardless of race, regardless of language, religion, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, receives the best possible chance for success and expression of one's highest potential. So student leadership, it requires integrity, it requires kindness, empathy, courage, and resilience, just to name a few of the traits that we learn, develop, and embody on our journeys. Since 2018, in February, CSA has responded to several instances of violence against students, with the greatest concentration of these cases in the Asia and Africa region. On 27th of February 2018, the anti-riot police officers fatally wounded Evans Njoroge, Secretary General of the Students Association of Meru University, during student protests of a tuition fee increase at the Kenyan University. And later that year, 110 girls from a technical college in Yobe State, Nigeria, were abducted by Boko Haram insurgents. 2 students were killed at a peaceful student protest for road safety in Dhaka, Bangladesh. In recent years, the proliferation of such tragedies is documented on either side of the Prime Meridian. Student activism in the United States gained global attention in 2018 when students of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida led the March for Our Lives protest against gun control legislation. And the Parkland shooting was in fact the 19th school shooting for the year. These events triggered a national response from students, from civil society, pressuring lawmakers to prioritize student welfare over ulterior political interests. Students have historically played a critical role, not just for education, but for integral issues that affect all of us as a society. After all, educational institutes are a microcosm of society, and students and youth make up critical elements of the social fabric. For accountability in Commonwealth education sectors to be achieved, student movements must consistently advocate for conducive learning environments and equity in the delivery of education for all. As the coalescence of Commonwealth students organizations, the CSA supports student advocacy through a strengthened regional and country presence that enhances cooperation amongst national student organizations. The world as we know right now is at a crossroads with injustice, racism, oppression, chaos, corruption, resurfacing through the cracks that world leaders have often tried to hide. And the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed all of these shortcomings to a greater magnitude. And in an increasingly connected and conscious global environment, students must be counted in efforts to maintain world peace and fundamental human rights. Throughout this academic year, the CSA will continue to support the advocacy of NSOs, aiming to ensure student safety in these uncertain times. As student representatives, we must be holding our constituents accountable to behaviors that may disrupt established conventions and thwart efforts towards promoting peaceful schools and communities. Furthermore, recognizing that these complexities transcend geographic regions, race, culture, language, and economic standing. So the CSA has been very proud to be a part of the Global Students Forum, standing alongside astute, brilliant, and powerful student movements like the All Africa Students Union, the European Students Union, OBESU, all with a vision to synergize our talents, our voices, and sing in unison as we face the challenges that are going on in the world right now and in the future to come. Our collaborations have led to the expression of a very powerful campaign, which is the 100 million campaign, Justice for Every Child, which I'm sure my other counterparts will be speaking of as well. We have seemingly insurmountable challenges in front of us, but I do believe that partnerships, collaborations, and sharing of resources in a trustworthy environment will help us overcome these one step at a time. So we are, once again, we should be very proud of ourselves, and we should encourage one another to keep marching on. So happy International Students' Day. We're very proud to be celebrating with everyone.
Oh, I'm muted. That was great. Thank you very much. Power to that. Happy Student World Day to everyone. I love that you spoke about the fact that there's something that we can do around the intolerance and repression that exists across our different regions at the moment. And you referenced a little bit around the collaboration work that's been supported by a 100 million campaign. And I wondered if Georgia maybe could come in and reflect a little bit about that, because even in Maisha's own input, she referenced activities from different parts of the world that then give rise to kind of a student activism and an energy wherever we're based locally. And those threads, I suppose, are the things that bring us together today and definitely have us celebrating this moment and using it rather also just to build momentum on the things that we plan to do for the next bit. But, you know, what are you thinking, Georgia?
That's a tricky question. You'll get my brain can of worms after I ever hear Maisha speak. She's always a difficult one to follow, so I'll draw the short straw here. Yeah, I want to just say thank you again for inviting me here to say a few words, because I never take it for granted being invited into these spaces, and it's an honor to be here. So in terms of the 100 million campaign, which I think I see very familiar faces on this call as well. We were founded by the Nobel Peace Prize winner from India, Kailash Satyarthi, who won the prize for a lifetime of defending children's rights and fighting for the right to education for all. And we focus on the right to be free, safe and educated for every child and young person, with a particular focus on those that are most marginalised and most exploited. Really recognising that we've seen incredible progress in the last 20 or so years to eradicate some evils, but it's consistently the same strata of society, the same children, the same young people who are consistently excluded from public services, from justice, from education. So he wants to unite young people around the world to tackle that. And we made a decision very early on to work with the representative unions of young people, not only due to your sheer size and expertise, but also we're very frustrated at the ridiculous levels of tokenism of young people in decision-making spaces. which are often, we are an explicitly political campaign. We are not a charity in that respect. And when you get tokenism, you are politically blunted, or you become NGO proxies. And there is no chance of anyone on this call will speak not on behalf of themselves or their memberships, rather than doing someone else's bidding. And I remember being in Ghana 18 months ago, when everyone kind of first had that conversation about GSF and the excitement and potential that was in the room. And I am in awe of all of you who have worked so hard in the past 18 months to get to this point. And as Maisha said, and as I'm sure my colleagues will say again, the world is in crisis. We are tackling so many different emergencies on so many different fronts. From not just COVID-19, but climate change, inequality, fascism, misogyny, rampant nationalism. Wherever you look, there's an emergency. But within every emergency, there is also an emergence. See what I did there? Something new, something better that rises to meet these challenges and to build something better. And for me, this is what GSF really typifies. All these old norms and traditional centres of power are crumbling, right? They're exposing the fallacy of capitalism, the racism and inaccuracy of blaming minorities for failures in public policy, the ridiculous cruelty of closing our borders to the most vulnerable citizens, the concentration of wealth and power in the hands of a few old white men, to name just a few. And a global, democratic, unapologetically progressive, united body of majority young people should be a terrifying prospect for those who want to keep the status quo. And at 100 million, where we work on kind of some of the most justice-based issues, we are so excited about the potential of this unit. And the very existence of GSF proves so many of these old assumptions wrong. And it could be a blueprint for what a more fair, equal, and just world could look like. A core example of GSF being equality of members, wherever they are in the world, whoever they happen to be or identify as. It's a power that goes way beyond the education sector alone, despite that being your focal, uniting quality. The way its ways of working day in, day out on global unity, on fairness, drawing on the depth of experience and expertise and power of its global membership, will do more to dispel any imagined delusions of global north, male or white superiority than any policy statement or think piece will do. Just your existence, the way you're going to work together, is going to be so transformative to the old status quo. And it really reminds me of one of my favorite quotes that's about, and I think I've said this to Peter before, so he'll be bored of me saying this, but if you've come here to help me, then you are wasting your time. But if you've come here because your liberation is bound up with my liberation, then let's work together. And that kind of peer-to-peer working is so exciting. And finally, just like speaking of personal experience here, working with so many of you over the past couple of years, from the steering committee, the regional platforms, the member unions, it has taught me personally so much how to be a better activist, a better ally, a better mobilizer, but it's also given me some of the most important, fun and supportive friendships. And I want to end on that because GSF isn't and shouldn't be just a force against evils of the world. It should be a testament to unity, to friendship, and to the transformational power of genuine global solidarity. So that's kind of all I wanted to say. Thank you again, and let's get to work.
That was great. Thank you so much. That was an active mandate throughout that entire input. The one part I caught, which I thought I wanted to speak to Peter about this in particular, is when you had said, look, where there is an emergency, and you're correct, the world is in crisis, there is also an emergence, and that's what we represent. And so you're talking to us about how we build society better. And I wanted to know from Peter, that the global student organizations in general and this formation, why would you say that is an important sort of vehicle to have, and what can be achieved through building structures like ours?
All right, so thank you very much. Let me do something, a bit of scripting. So I don't have a speech, but I would want to start on the note of extending an appreciation to the Open Society Foundation for supporting this. I think when it started, I got contacted personally by Luke Shaw. I would speak a little bit about Luke later. So, and then again, I would want to say a very huge thank you to 100 Million campaign. Georgia underscores it and she doesn't say it as it should be, but the constitutive meeting for GSF was actually done on the back of 100 Million campaign in June of 2019. And so if we were to write and go back into history in that sense, 100 Million is pivotal. It's been very instrumental in the journey that we've had so far. I equally want to say thank you to Education International. They also have been amazing. They've been supportive. And I think that these three organizations, Open Society Foundation, 100 Million Campaign, and EI, have been very instrumental into how far we've come. And so if today we can convene under the umbrella GSF, I think in large part, these three organizations need some remembrance and also some credit. Again, I would want to say thank you to Luke Shaw and Georgia, and I'm so excited that I have an opportunity to speak just after her. They've been particularly amazing. Look, there have been times when those of us who've been the front runners of this in terms of leading the student unions, we've despaired largely because of our responsibilities back in terms of leading ASU, ESU, OBESU, CSA. We have, huge responsibilities. But these two keep driving us, they keep moving us, they keep seeing the bigger picture in terms of what an organization like GSF can do. And so if today we talk under the umbrella of an organization as huge as this, I think these two personalities need recognition and then mention. Let me go into why I think that it was significant to convene back in June 2019 and begin to have a conversation about why we should have an amplified voice at the global level. While we've been at it solo, so we've been doing stuff as All Africa Students Union, European Students Union, organizing Bureau of School Students Unions, CSA, UCLI. We've been doing our things for as long as it has been. In the time that we've been doing this, a lot of things have happened that have gone to the detriment of students. If you take, for example, at the WTO level, education has been classified as a tradable commodity. Now, what that means for all of us, because I do know that as ESU, as OBESU, as ASU, as all of us, one of the fundamental trait that is common to all of us is that we do agree that education should be a fundamental human right. Education should be something that is accessible by all, regardless of background, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of wherever it is that you're coming from. You should be able to access it as a human right. If it is a human right, then it shouldn't be classified as a tradable commodity, such that only the people who have can afford it. But while we've been doing our things alone, the WTO at the highest level put education at the category of a tradable commodity. Now that shifts the discussions beyond what our groups at various levels agree on. And I do know that it is very fundamental to all of us that education continues to be democratized. Education continues to be a fundamental human right. Now, if some months ago, we had the GSF, we would be able to have a voice at the global level to represent our interest on institutions like UNESCO, like the WTO, at all those levels where education is discussed and we don't have a single student voice. Again, we know that the UNESCO is working on the global convention on the recognition of qualifications. Now, this is a framework that is supposed to generally make mobility of skill sets, competences, and recognitions in terms of academic certifications available and globalized. However, as it has been done we realized that there is the absence of a student voice as of the time that for something that must profit us as students, its consultative phase meant that we didn't have a voice. And so if you look at the wide range of things that have been done that affect students directly, we have not had a voice to be able to represent us. So among so many things that sought to incentivize us to believe that it was important to have a critical voice at the global level, we thought that we should be able to come together. We should be able to do things together. And in the short span that we've been together, I do think that we've achieved enormous achievements. And if you take, for example, there have been times when we have come together to stand in solidarity, to stand for children who we know that, in this era of COVID have been very marginalized. We've also come together to stand for women and children in so many ways. We've also generally stood for the marginalized. We've stood to condemn human rights violations everywhere on the continent and then globally. So there are a number of things that we have achieved, and it gives us the indication that as we continue to work together, we'll be able to achieve a lot more. And so I would want to end here by thanking everybody who has been a part of this one, right from Accra in June 2019, and then all those who have joined afterwards. I do hope that we're able to build a union that is sustainable, a union that is inclusive, and one that brings everyone to the fore. And I do think that if we're able to do things the way we're doing them now, we will set an example and a precedent to our leaders that it is possible to come together and have a collective interest and agenda that suits everybody and that reflects the needs of everybody, not just those from the privileged backgrounds, but equally those that come from the underprivileged backgrounds, and to stand for those who don't have a voice. And I would just want to share something that myself and Georgia always say. So we have said that sometimes we despair, sometimes we feel that we're not seeing the efforts of what we're doing. But then she reminded me that sometimes the results of our efforts is not something that even a generation like ours would see, but that it is other generations who might see this. So it's just to encourage all of us that it's just a start. But then let's just hope that what we do today will be to the profit of those who come after us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. Well said, well said. I think, comrade, talking about the kinds of gains that we want to work towards and the ability to be able to maintain and build energy, but connected to how we find discipline, high morality inside ourselves as comrades, as young people that are going to walk and are walking this journey together is fitting and very true. And I think connected to that, I'm wondering, and I want to sort of ask Alex this question, how GSF can support solidarity actions and international cooperation between students and their movements, just to sort of piggyback off the sentiments that Peter was sharing with us just in his own input now.
Thank you for the question. I will try to answer that. And yeah, I also want to say that I really agree with all of the speakers before me. I'm really inspired, even got goosebumps. So dear co-students all around the world, dear peers, and most importantly, dear friends, I find myself incredibly honored to have the chance raising my thoughts and demands on behalf of the Organizing Bureau of the European School Student Unions. I will raise my answer to this question from a place, a country where we have the highest infection rate per day per million worldwide at the moment. And I'm raising these words in a world where 1.5 billion students were denied the right to good quality education or any education at all. Today, the 17th of November, is a day to celebrate too. I'm celebrating the fact that I'm not alone, but more having us, each other, the Global Students Forum. But this day is also a day of remembering, and I really want to put it short, remembering the cruelty of fascism, oppression, racism, Nazi fascism. In 1939, students were fighting in protests against this Nazi fascism, students and teachers leaving behind their lives, moreover thousands that were sent to concentration camps where their death awaited them. And this day reminds me, next to many other days, that we never ever shall remain silent when injustice takes place, also today. where my peers in VT workers are ignored, where my peers are fleeing from war not started by them, finding themselves in refugee camps, denied their basic human rights, one of them education. We find ourselves in a world where the fact that the gap between rich and poor is more obvious than ever is simply accepted, where so many students lost their access to education because people responsible don't give money into technical equipment. Some students were forced into child labor, where inclusion and mental health are phrases, nice phrases in good speeches, but are far away from implementing and school reality. Today, I want to scream, and I know that the Global Students Forum, which I'm so thankful for that it exists, is the perfect place for it. All the students of the world united, because the system is so damn wrong. Because I know that a lot of people were in school once, workers, teachers, bank directors, even politicians. And I strongly believe and have always believed that if the school of today or university of today is an inclusive, well-funded, discrimination fighting, awareness raising institution, our society of tomorrow will be a better one. And I think we can reach this through GSF. Fighting for a better world where no one is discriminated because of race, gender, sexuality, beliefs, social status, or access needs, or other things. And also at this point, I want to raise the big importance of decolonizing school curricula or curricula in general and embracing these global narratives. Together, fighting for a world where all people have justice and youngsters receive good education. And I want, like from the bottom of my heart, thank you all for contributing in the fight for a better world. And I promise that we as a BESU will do the best thing too, and you can count on us as an ally. And yeah, I will wear a mask, but I will not wear it on my eyes, ignoring that fair share for all and justice for all children is denied. These are also from the 100 million campaign, these slogans. And we also have started this campaign, School Student Rights Are Not in a Lockdown, and we mean it. And yes, sometimes I find myself tired, frustrated, doing the job that our policymakers should do and then being ignored. But I can't wait for the future that we can create where all of us will be the change makers we are even now. And because I cannot say it nearly good as Malala, I want to close with her words. Education is the best weapon. Thank you all for your attention and moreover being here.
Viva. Thank you so much, Alex. I appreciate that you've grounded the principles of the Global Students Forum, the reason that we gathered here and commemorating in the real lived experiences, ours and that of our peers. You've also sort of echoed a call around pushing forward in the decolonial agenda around education and bringing to the fore these global narratives in ways to try to sort of bridge the inequalities, the deep inequalities inside our societies. And I wondered maybe if Rosalia wanted to reflect on some of those calls. And after that, Rosalia, I'd like you to talk to us a little bit about what does it mean to challenge these like narratives, the status quo? What does it mean to have students from across the globe gathered, speaking in one voice in 2020 on this very date? Okay, maybe you could come in and then I'll find Rosalia in the meanwhile.
Fine, okay. So thank you very much for that. So today, yes, is a day for congratulations, I think, and thought about some solid foundations built to build a structure that will really enable solidarity, common action, purpose, but also to amplify and strengthen actions that are taken courageously by student organizations everywhere. But today, I think as Alex pointed out, today is also a day for remembering, a day for rage, a day for determination, and a day for grief. Alex mentioned that thousands of students resisting the Nazis were sent to the camps in 1939. They were protesting, I think, the death of a student who was shot and killed by the police, a chap called Jan Opletal, on the 28th of October, when it was Czech Independence Day. And on this day, on the 17th of November, 9 students were executed by the Nazis, and others, teachers, were sent to the camps, over 1,000, and lots of those didn't make it. But this is a pattern of violence that didn't start then. That was always there before, but it's one that we've seen ongoing. And the thing that we've seen about student movements is that they're movements with enormous determination and power, but also in many ways they're movements that are on the fringes of society. Students are not people that are politically powerful in the formal status quo sense. Their institutions aren't influential in politics or in finance. And I think as a result, students always feel they want a better world, so they're coming forward with enormous courage to confront a status quo with the reality of the world that they're creating, saying we want something better for tomorrow. And this is always met with delegitimization, with defunding, and with violence. So violence is not new to student movements. From South Africa, both Nangnedo and I are South African, and we share a beautiful but a terrible history. 1976, 16th of June, Hector Peterson was shot and killed by police. Official figures of young black students in that year who were killed was 179. But everyone in the struggle knows that the figures were closer to 600-700, probably, in those years around that time. And right through the 80s, hundreds more young people were shot and killed, along with workers and others as well. But students bore the front of that struggle and stood up very bravely and fought that. And very recently, students were killed. Yesterday, I think we have to remember, 2 students were shot and killed in Peru, protesting against the police, but also potential takeover of that government, as we've seen in Bolivia, by fascist forces. So I would like to remember today Jack Pintado and Jordan Sotelo, 2 young men, 22 and 24. They were shot and killed yesterday. So we should remember them. And we've seen other killings this year. On the 5th of October, a young man was shot and killed in Haiti. His name was Gregory Santiler, and there was a demonstration. He was demonstrating for the right to work, the fact that there was such a lack of employment. We've seen other students shot and killed in Guinea in the forefront of pushing back against elections, where previous head of power tried to hold on to power in a difficult transfer of power. And right through COVID, we know that that people were shot and killed as well. So what is the role of Global Students Forum in the face of such violent repression on the one hand? Anytime, just about any day, we can mention there are 3 or 4 struggles globally which students are at the forefront of the struggle, whether it's Peru, whether it's Thailand, whether it's Hong Kong, whether it's Palestine. Students are in the forefront of these struggles. So what possible role can an organization like the Global Students Forum have? And we've mentioned that you're here to organize acts of solidarity, to amplify your common voices. But I think those are symbolic things, symbolic struggles, and they're very important. But I think for me, what the Global Student Forum represents actually is a very determined and practical way to make a difference. And the question that the forum is asking is, how do we really build strength? How do we retain a memory, for instance, that is belongs to all of us, that we share, that is of our progressive actions? How do we share the experience where we've seen the tremendous vitality and struggles that we've seen in different parts of the world? How do we share that? How do we help a new leadership that has come into place that might not have had too much political experience? How do we help that new leadership face the challenges that they must face as quickly as possible? Why do we need to do that from the student movement and not from outside, and not from people who think they know more, who think they know better? And I think these are the urgent and practical purposes that the Global Student Forum is here to address. It's to provide a connection between the ordinary, daily, mundane organizing things that have to be done that can make us so tired. but with these greater social struggles, where we have heroes coming forward and people being killed for standing up for a better life for themselves or for solidarity for their comrades. So this and all of the struggles against sexism, for a planet that in fact will still be a planet 100 years from now that we can live on, to push back against the authoritarian tendencies that we've seen, but also against economic repression, to be able to go to have an education, go to school, study further if you like, but to actually know you can live in a world where there'll be a reasonable job for you and your family. These are things that are not going to be given to us, and they are things that we have to fight and win through struggle. So from the Open Society Foundations, where we fight a lot of these battles in sometimes more technical ways or with smaller groups of organizations through NGOs, advancing rights or amplifying voices or funding some research or doing the things that funders do. The action of mass-based organizations, the struggles of students where you can pull in larger numbers of people, this is where the energy and the allies are for any change, any social change that is made. It's the mass-based social movements that are rooted in communities, in schools, in universities. This is where the real energy is from, and this is where the struggle is actually led. Everything we do as a funder, even though we might think we're taking the initiative, actually is following your lead. And it's a tremendous lead. There's a lot of attacks on student movements these days, not only trying to legitimize them, but attacks from the right. We can't assume that a student movement is always a progressive one these days, because there's been such an effort to control the political message by reactionary nationalist political forces. And that's the space, that progressive space that this structure needs to fight for. So we admire and really take a lot of courage and inspiration from the commitment of the Global Student Forum, first of all, to independent student organizing. We know that the history of global student federations is a very political one, and it's a one of political control, actually. Student movements were controlled either by the CIA or the KGB right up until the 90s. And after that, there's been some disarray and no independent global structure has emerged. This would be the first, if it can succeed, that has been free of political independence. We have to ensure that we don't follow political dependence with some form of corporate control. And that's why, in terms of your funding and the way the Global Student Forum goes forward, we need to pick partners very carefully and ensure whatever funding comes in does not compromise the political integrity or the independence of the structure. In addition to that, I think the other core commitment that we really take inspiration from and admire so much is the commitment to democratic organizing. And we know democratic organizing is never perfect. We know it's a mess, but it is a mess worth fighting and trying to fix. And we deeply, deeply respect the tradition and the commitment to democracy and what that implies for non-sexism, for anti-racism, for fighting for an equal and inclusive engagement for all young people. So that's what it represents for us. You are our energy, the petrol in our tank, you're the battery in our torches. You're a crucial movement for democracy and for the world. And the challenges ahead of you are absolutely enormous. So it's with great respect, but also, as I've said, with a sense of rage, anger, but also determination that we look at today. It should bring all of those things to the fore for us and unite us, I think, in around the vision for a different future that can only be built and led by young people. Thank you.
Mandla, I wish I knew if there were any equal education comrades on here, because what I just said was power. The response is to the people. So it's Amandla, and people go Ngawetu. Then I say back Ngawetu, Amandla. Deep resonance, I think, with your input. There are mandates there as well. But I think having come in at this stage of the discussion, it's clear that the young folk that have spoken before you are carrying this rage, they're carrying this energy, they understand the intentions around the commemoration, and how we want to use today to bolster and start off a project that's going to allow us to build strong and sustained actions for sort of mass-based social movement in ways that we can galvanize different parts of societies to follow us in this journey of building back sort of a world that we want to be part of in the future. So I mean, it's an exciting time. I have one question that I'm hoping Gohar could come in and maybe talk to us about, is how are we going to continue to do this building? How are we going to maintain ourselves as the Global Students Forum as like a mass social movement, and how are we going to be able to build this kind of solidarity?
Thank you so much for this question. And it was so reflective to kind of follow all the different interventions that come to cover so many different needs that we all as students and as young people need to speak about, to raise, and to understand how we can actually find solutions for them. And indeed, I'm super happy to reflect on how this can actually happen, because just some days ago, me and Sebastian were meeting one of our very prominent alumni who has been part of ESU about 20 years ago. And she was sharing with us that back then, there were so many kind of steps and actions taken to set up a global students forum, but that didn't happen. And she was just so happy to hear that today we have this. Today it is a reality, and we are going into more strong and more structured student representation on the global level. So first thing, I hope that this is not going to take us, another 20 years to see Global Students Forum as a very sustainable organization, but I'm sure that it will become, because I've been following and I see how much dedication and energy is there just from many different leaders, including from the side of ESU, where my colleagues have been doing amazing work to support the foundation of the Global Students Forum. And I think the key areas here will be to just always remember to be internally, kind of within the organization, humble towards each other, to listen to each other, to try to figure out what are the areas that unite us, what are the purposes and the vision that unites us, and how we can move forward to that vision. But also reflecting on the organization externally, I think it is important to build sustainable and consistent ways of functioning for the Global Students Forum, so that so that we do not end up in a situation where for example, the change between student representatives on the Global Student Forum is very high, because this is something that often harms student representation. I'm saying this from the perspective of both my national student union, also in the European Student Union. We often feel that when there is not enough of consistency or transfer of information between student representatives, we end up in a situation that, kind of a lot of knowledge is being sometimes lost. So I hope that within the Global Student Forum, we will be able to keep this consistency. I think so far there has been a lot of work done on reaching out to different global platforms that could engage with the Global Students Forum. And I think this kind of external lobby work should continue firmly to make sure that different global organizations and institutions are well aware about the Global Students Forum, that it's starting to function in a very operative manner. And from the European side, from the side of the European Students' Union, we are extremely happy to support this work, because at least on the European level, we have a quite strong structures and platforms developed where our voice is quite well heard, I would say. And we're super happy to collaborate with all the rest of the regional leaders in making sure that this happens also for the Global Students Forum.
Thank you very much, Gora. I appreciate that. I'm looking at our time, and I wanted to try and start a more interactive sort of a question and answer period, but I see that that's coming up in the next 20 minutes or so, where we'll be able to take in Deva's question or input from the chat box, for example, put it on the table, and be able to sort of take it apart together. But it sounds like everyone, there's like great synergy around what the moment is representing, what we want to do about it, from wherever we are on the continent, in the world. And so it's definitely an exciting time to be alive. And the questions now around how we sustain ourselves and build momentum moving from this moment. I want to thank everyone that's been part of this panel, because I do want to give the Global Students Forum Steering Committee to lay some ground for us, just as we start all these conversations. So I want to thank everyone that's on this panel. I am honored to sit with you, thinking about the types of work and sacrifices, your brains, your hearts, and what you bring to this world. So we're better for having you around. And yeah, I want to hand back to Sebastian, and thank you for just inviting Equal Education here as well. It's just, it's a privilege to be amongst other young folk that are just as valiant.
Thank you so much, Noncedo. Just one request, is Rosalie from Oakley by now connected? Do we know that, Pina, from the technical side? Because very good. So then I would move back one more time and give the floor to Rosalie to give the Latin American perspective before we move on with the deliberations from the steering committee.
Listo.
Ah, there you go.
Listo. Un fraterno saludo de parte de la Organización Continental Latinoamericana y Caribeña de Estudiantes. En nombre del Ejecutivo, en nombre de la organización, queremos celebrar y también conmemorar a esos estudiantes que fueron masacrados en 1939. Recordar que este día es para nosotros un día de mucha reflexión y sobre todo de mucho trabajo, de mucha entrega. Nosotros como movimiento estudiantil latinoamericano, ya con una organización latinoamericana continental como es la OCLAE, tenemos alrededor de más de 50 años de existir, donde nuestras banderas de lucha han estado enfocadas en nuestros principios antiimperialistas, anticolonialistas y sobre todo por la emancipación de nuestros pueblos a través de la educación, una educación que tiene que ser gratuita, accesible y de calidad. Hablar del tema de la educación en Latinoamérica es hablar de años de lucha. Nos podemos remontar desde la reforma de Córdoba de 1918 en Argentina, donde estudiantes que estaban dispuestos a sacrificar su propia vida empezaron a luchar por una universidad del pueblo, por una universidad accesible, por una universidad que tuviera un cogobierno, donde el movimiento estudiantil, donde los estudiantes fueran parte de esa construcción de esa educación. Y hoy por hoy la reforma de Córdoba está enarbolada y está plantada en todos los cimientos del movimiento estudiantil latinoamericano, donde trabajamos y luchamos por esa educación, que es una educación que nosotros vemos que tienen que estar los estados, poner las plataformas para que la educación sea accesible. Recordar también de que el estudiante latinoamericano, por su naturaleza, es un estudiante de lucha, es un estudiante consciente desde su posición, digamos, privilegiada en la sociedad por ser ese agente que tiene el acceso a la educación, que tiene acceso al conocimiento. Creemos profundamente en que estamos en aras de una universidad para el pueblo en Latinoamérica, donde estamos luchando contra el neoliberalismo, contra ese sistema que nos domina, pero nosotros como movimiento estudiantil resistimos. Ejemplo claro es lo que sucede en el Perú, donde nosotros hemos perdido a 2 estudiantes. Qué bueno recordar hoy 2 estudiantes que lucharon y lucharon por una sociedad más justa, por una sociedad más equitativa, donde una crisis política fue la gota que derramó el vaso, porque ya habían problemas con respecto a la crisis sanitaria que estamos viviendo a nivel mundial. Y esos estudiantes conscientes de que a través de la lucha social, a través de la lucha de masa, se lanzaron a las calles en su derecho legítimo de protestar. También recordar a Ecuador, un país que también está luchando en contra de las reformas que pretendía hacer el gobierno de Lenín Moreno, contra las reformas al presupuesto de la educación, cosa que ellos evitaron con su movilización en las calles. También a los estudiantes de Brasil, enfrentando una verdadera crisis sanitaria con respecto a la negligencia que tiene el gobierno de Bolsonaro en este país. Sin embargo, no todo está, no es todo desesperanzador. Movimientos estudiantiles también están enfocados en trabajar de cara a la pandemia. Ejemplo de eso, y es un ejemplo que quiero que todos ustedes sepan, es Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, que a pesar de que somos los ejes de ataque del sistema global, del sistema imperialista de los Estados Unidos, hemos dado ejemplo claro de cómo es que se gobierna, hemos dado ejemplo claro de que los estudiantes forman parte de esas transformaciones sociales y que estamos de vanguardia para solucionar, para apoyar, para aportar, para solidarizarnos con todos esos hermanos que sufren esta pandemia, que es realmente una crisis mundial, una crisis sanitaria. Hemos visto también el manejo efectivo de estos gobiernos. Para mí es importante recordar que la Organización Continental Latinoamericana y Caribeña de Estudiantes fue fundada por un visionario, fue fundada por Fidel Castro Ruz, un presidente, un revolucionario que en sus tiempos de estudiantes visionaba esa unidad latinoamericana, visionaba esa construcción de unidad, esa construcción de todos los países latinoamericanos para construir esa sociedad y para hacer esa patria grande que soñamos nosotros acá. Hablar de la OCLAE es también hablar de la democracia por la diversidad de corrientes ideológicas que existen en nuestra organización. Ejemplo claro es que dentro de nuestra organización existen personas que militan en partidos políticos que no necesariamente son partidos políticos que compaginan con Cuba o con Nicaragua, pero nuestro trabajo o nuestra visión, nuestro objetivo en común es la educación. Y sabemos que desde la educación vamos a transformar el continente, estamos transformando el continente. Conmemorar para nosotros es importante. La memoria histórica debe estar siempre ahí, recordando a nuestros estudiantes como Fefel, que con solidaridad latinoamericana fue asesinado en Vietnam, en la guerra de Vietnam, un estudiante que era de Puerto Rico, miembro del ejecutivo de la OCLAE, que fue asesinado en un ataque aéreo que sufrió Vietnam en ese momento. Recordarlo a él es también recordar que todos los estudiantes latinoamericanos nos caracterizamos por esa solidaridad. Creo que es lo más importante. Las plataformas continentales y esta iniciativa del Global Forum Student es una iniciativa que nosotros aplaudimos desde Latinoamérica, desde este continente que ha sufrido demasiado el saqueo y la explotación del sistema imperante, de esa hegemonía que, al igual que el pueblo africano, sabemos y hemos sido víctimas de ese saqueo indiscriminado y de esa complicidad de muchos gobiernos para hacer más rico al rico y más pobre al pobre. Nosotros como CLAE estamos trabajando siempre en aras de seguir construyendo esa educación y sobre todo de unificar esa fuerza, esa lucha y esa conciencia de los estudiantes latinoamericanos. Hablar también de lo CLAE ahorita es hablar de que tenemos una nueva bandera de lucha, la educación en línea. Una educación en línea que pretende deshumanizar la educación, porque no nos debemos de olvidar que la educación es una interacción social donde la educación, el conocimiento se construye junto con el docente en las aulas de clase, en aras de resolver los problemas de nuestra sociedad, no en aras de seguir fomentando una mano de obra barata para las grandes potencias, para las grandes transnacionales. Eso nosotros lo tenemos bien claro y por eso como CLAE estamos luchando y estamos teniendo esta discusión. También hablar de la equidad de género, hablar de ese flagelo que golpea a todo el mundo, que es esa manera de apartar a la mujer en los espacios importantes, tanto de gobierno como en la sociedad. La violencia de género ha sido un flagelo que realmente nos preocupa como estudiantes latinoamericanos y tenemos ejemplos de trabajo en ese sentido, como los compañeros de Chile, los compañeros de Argentina, los compañeros de México, donde están luchando porque la mujer pueda lograr su emancipación, tener acceso al aborto gratuito, tener acceso también a la educación y sobre todo tener acceso a ser protagonistas de los cambios sociales y de dirigir y ser capaz de dirigir organizaciones. Quiero a ustedes comentarles, compañeros, que desde la CLAE tenemos 3 mujeres al frente de la organización, 3 mujeres, la compañera Vía, que atiende el Cono Sur, la compañera Itza, que atiende la región andina, y mi persona, que atiendo Centroamérica y México. Este ejemplo de cómo nosotros hemos visionado esa equidad de género, esa paridad política dentro de nuestras políticas estudiantiles. Y quiero concluir, hermanos, no decir que somos la receta perfecta para un movimiento estudiantil unido, pero sí decir de que estamos en buenos pasos y en buenos caminos. 55 años de lucha nos respaldan, 55 años de trabajo nos ayudan a decir que la OCLAE es una organización que va a durar 55 años más. Un abrazo, muchísimas gracias por este espacio.
Thank you so much, Rosalia, for giving us the perspective of OCLAE. Very much appreciated. Thank you for taking the time to join us. We will now move on, since our interventions from all of the speakers took a bit more time than initially expected, to the interactive part and then feed in the content inputs from the steering committee after. And I want to say thank you on behalf of the whole team to all speakers, to Noncedo, our moderator, for joining us. And I will straight away give the floor to Pina, who takes the lead on the interactive session that is about to follow. Pina, all yours.
Hey everyone. I have how's everyone feeling after this round of interventions on the panel? Good? Good? Cool. I can see some energy still. I'm sure we are all in different time zones. For us it's morning, for some it's morning, for some it's late evening. So I trying to set a global standard, let's say, of energy. We give the floor to the steering committee people from the GSF later on, but we first wanted to hear a bit more from all of you. So you have received a bit of guiding questions that we asked you to maybe think about. Now, to break the ice and give comfort for people to come on the microphone, I have prepared a tiny interactive session. I don't know how many of you have used Mentimeter in the past in your virtual life since COVID-19 started. So I'm going to share my screen here. You can see the QR code if you want to access it through your phone. For those of you who are not planning to do so, I am sharing the link and the passcode on the chat. So I'm going to now try to stop sharing. Yes, I managed, and then send you the information in the chat. So you go on menti.com and then you will be able to see what I am also going to share with everyone now. So you should be seeing, let's see. if my computer wants to cooperate. Aha, no, you should not be seeing this. Sorry. I'm really not the best with these digital tools. Did you manage to log in? Did people manage to log in? Put a thumbs up if you did. Cool, so I'm the only one who didn't manage. That's fantastic, fantastic. Okay, let's start by sharing a bit of the ideas for the discussion. So to participate in the discussion, you can raise your hand on Zoom. So if you raise your hand like this, unfortunately, we don't see everyone on the screen. But if you use the raise hand button on Zoom, that is going to be fantastic because we will also have a list. We will try to give, well, I will try to keep balance between all genders of intervention by an idea that I can have. So I'm sorry if I self-assume sometimes. I am also going to try to balance interventions by continent and region so that we don't have 5 interventions from the same exact country. You should mute your microphone when you are not speaking, and then please try to speak for 2 to 3 minutes. I will be, look at me while you speak because I share this 30 seconds reminder when your time is almost up. For those of you who have never used the raise hand button on Zoom, if my computer allows, you can, that's the wrong kind of slide. You can find it in the, if you click on participants, you can find it there and you can raise your hand. Is anybody willing to start come on the microphone and share a bit of their perspectives? Or are you already on the Menti? I see a lot of you are already on the Mentimeter on the first question, which was, where are you connecting from? Let's see where people are connecting from. So far, not so good in terms of diversity, but I can see that there is more people that maybe haven't joined the Menti yet. If you don't manage to join the Menti and you want to come on the microphone, please come on the microphone and tell us where you're from or use the chat. Good, so we know we will have to balance the interventions from Europe. That's something we know now.
I am from India, Asia, actually.
Hello, Deva. Okay, we have a bit of an idea. Let's try to move on to some of the other questions that are on the Mentimeter. You should be able to actually move a bit on your own. They are kind of thought to for you to, yeah, not what I was hoping for you to exactly share a bit of what does International Student Day mean to you. And I'm seeing lots of words that resonate with today's discussion. Rereading unity, collaboration, solidarity, struggle. Solidarity is getting bigger, seems freedom, movement power, togetherness, remembrance, comem. What does comem mean? You can come on the microphone and tell us. Empoderamiento, super nice. Globalization. Very interesting. We have somewhat, you can continue coming in. We've got 28 entries so far. I'm sure people can bring in, and we have already someone who wants to share a bit of thoughts. Sarah, do you want to come on the microphone? Maybe not now. All right. So whenever, Sarah, you want to, you can just type also in the chat and we'll give you, I can see your, okay, your hand is not raised anymore, so no. Does anybody want to come on the microphone and share their perspective on International Students Day and what do these words mean to you? Someone raised that and then unraised it. No, yes. I cannot see your name, but I see your hand is raised. Miriam, do you want to come on the microphone?
Yes, I wanted to say that I think Students' Day or International Students' Day is quite important. But for me, as a member of a school students organization, it's like every day is School Students' Day. And the importance of student rights is like a very, very important topic. We are in discussion like every day. So I think it's very cool that there is the chance to talk about it, not just in Austria, but with other countries too. So I really like the concept of the Global Students' Union Forum.
Thank you, Miriam. And before I give the word to Rania, I just wanted to echo also what Deva is saying in the chat. There's also another comment from Deva before. So I saw some people interacting in the chat. Please use it to interact among yourself as much as you prefer. We are all global citizens, and each and every one are brothers and sisters. That's definitely one of the things International Students Day means. And Rania, I leave the...
Yes, hello everybody. I'm very, very honored to be here today. Feel very inspired by everything that's been said before. I'm Rania, I'm from Germany, as it says in my naming, and I'm also a designated member of the Executive Committee of the European Students' Union. And I have some thoughts that I'd like to share, if that's okay, on the fourth question that has been sent on how we can contribute combating modern forms of fascism and anti-democratic forces. Because I think, to me, this is of extreme importance. And I'd like to make a little historical excursus, because it has already been mentioned what has happened on this exact day in 1939 in Czechoslovakia. But what is rarely talked about is what students did in Germany in that time. And that is heavily supporting National Socialism, deporting Jewish fellow students and oppositions from university campuses and burning books. Actually, students and student unions in Germany were amongst the strongest supporters of National Socialism. And I say that because I think it's important for all of us, and it has been mentioned before, that we cannot take for granted that student unions are always oppositional and emancipatory. I want student unions to be so. I want them to fight for equal rights. I want them to fight for a more just world, society, and education system. But the past shows us that it's not always self-evident. And I think to bear that in mind and to learn from history, and I'm from Germany, so I brought up that example, which is very, very important. I think is one major aspect of fighting fascism today and anti-democratic forces, to remember what happened in the past. And another thing is that we see that education is not sufficient the way it is today. We see that education helps upkeeping the social disadvantages that we face every day, the ideologies that bring so much cruelty into the world: anti-Semitism, racism, sexism. So beyond fighting for a better education system, I think it's very important that we also try to make our own education, with which I mean political education. I think upkeeping that we can educate ourselves in order to make a better world and to not let history repeat itself in the worst forms is very important for a global organization. And that's my thought on that. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Rania, for sharing your insights. Those are definitely, I see people, you can express your agreement in many forms. I see that there is a big agreement on your contribution, so definitely most welcome. I'm going to move on to the next question that we were asking on the Mentimeter, which was also, I mean, all of these questions are actually linked, and there's already a lot of contributions here. So I'm looking forward to sharing my screen so that everybody can see this. There were a lot of contributions on the question, what does the Global Student Forum mean to you and your organization? And we can see really lots of contributions. So I'm hoping some people are going to be willing and come on the microphone. I'm seeing that already there is someone. I cannot see names today. I am sorry. But please do come on the microphone. I'm trying to see names, but it's going to take a while from my brain today.
Hi, good day, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. My name is Jensen Samuel. I am from the Caribbean, as can be seen, and I represent the Guild of Students of the University of the West Indies, which is one of the largest student organizations in the Anglophone Caribbean. And I think ultimately at this forum here today, I represent the voices of students of post-colonial developing global South societies. And I'm happy to be a part of this forum, for us here in the Caribbean as a people who have been historically marginalized and oppressed and had our voices and our dignity and our humanity taken from us at one point or another, to now be included in spaces like this where we can have conversations with our global counterparts. I think it is very progressive, and to be a part of a movement of youths in this era who now are calling for justice, who now are standing in solidarity with each other across the globe, that I could be here in the Caribbean and lend solidarity to someone in Europe, in Asia, in Africa, or in India, or wherever else, I think is very, very amazing to me. And the Global Student Forum, and ultimately a Global Students Union, allows for that kind of thing, where not only can we lend our solidarity, but also support shared causes and have our voices heard at various levels. I was thinking the other day, what say do we have in international organizations meeting? What say do we have in major meetings that happens across the globe that makes decisions that affect students throughout the world? And we don't have student voices present in those spaces. So when we can collectively demand to have not just a tokenist seat at the table, but we deserve several seats because of the large amount of persons that we represent, and we can make valued contribution, not just asking us to give a youth perspective, but we can give perspectives in general about any and everything that affects us. So today on International Students Day, I just want to wish everyone on behalf of the Caribbean, happy International Students Day, and we're happy to be here and happy to be able to contribute and share in this space.
Thanks a lot, Benson. Particularly, I think we can all share the kind of need that was also a bit outlined in the answers that we received here written, that one of the things that we can do as GSF is to bring closer our voice to where debates and decisions are taken, and definitely in a non-tokenistic way, or at least that's what we will try to do. But definitely the number and the representativity that we can have together is something that can give us strength. And with this, I pass on the word to Matteo. Now I'm learning to see names. So.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matteo Vespa. I'm an international official of UDUM, the main Italian Union of Students, and member of the European Students Union. And I'm also a member of the next executive committee of ESSU. For us in UDU, we've been always involved in the movement for global social justice, and we see GSF as a new hope and a new spring within the movement of the global social movements for justice that we saw in the alter globalization movement in the late 90s. So we think that GSF can be important during this period for many reasons. We have the climate crisis, we have the inequalities that are rampant with COVID-19, and we think that we are now seeing a crisis of the multilateralism, where the common house of the people, which is the United Nations, are struggling in functioning, while elitist gatherings like the G20 are trying to be the real the real economic government of the world without having the representativeness of that an economic government, global economic government should have. So we think that we need to we need the GSF for two reasons. The first one is to push for the education worldwide, not only higher education, but education from childhood education, from kindergarten to higher education, which is one of the things that one of the main issues to actually bring down inequalities. And we think that we should work on two issues. The first one is that everyone should have the right to study in every country that they want. But the other is that every person should have the possibility to have a quality, free of charge education in their country, in their own language. And for the first one, we think that GSF can be really useful to have a global campaign for the ratification of the Global Recognition Convention of UNESCO that Peter from ASU was talking about. And on the other hand, it can be also really useful to start a global campaign for financing education in order for it to be a public good, to be a universal good, and to be a good free of charge. We think also that GSF can be really useful to work within the other global societal movements and organizations to partner up with the UN institutions to call for a democratic reform of the United Nations system in order to make it more democratic and more and closer to the needs of all the peoples of the world. And we have and to partner up with the other global movements and global society organizations. We have the document that was produced in the last meeting of the Global Youth Caucus. We call for the vaccine to be a public good, for what we call that to end student precarity in COVID-19 and beyond, and to work towards the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Finally, we think that the global student movement can be really important to sustain the struggles for democracy all around the world. We saw today in Thailand that the students that are protesting against the autocratic government and the monarchy have been suppressed, and the police force were used. And we need to engage also with the countries, especially in Asia, with the democratic student organizations that fight for the students' right and fight for the democratic rights, especially as I said in Asia, where there is not as of now a continental student organization. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Matteo, and I pass on the word to to Deva, before I can I summarize a bit on this question, and we move on to the next question, which is more relevant to your own organization and what is the kind of link between GSF and your organization. So Deva, I pass the word to you. You can also already bridge to the next question if you feel like you want.
Yeah. So like already I have mentioned few steps in the chat box actually, so I won't take much time. Most of the things have been told very well by my friend Matthew actually, like whatever I thought to tell, he also had the same point actually. And moreover, back in India currently, for past 6 years, student leaders and student activists have been continuously harassed, and the violence, the police violence has been implemented or done against student leaders across India actually. Like the voice has been suppressed, but we are like moving on, and we are trying to do our best actually to show our support and I'm representing National Students Union of India and frontal wing of Indian National Congress. Actually, it's a political body, principal opposition party back in India. So we are trying to do our best. And moreover, like Matthew told, that in Asia particularly, there is no continental non-political student organization back in Asia actually. So the imperative need has been arisen now, and GSF will be a good platform to unite student organizations in particular in Asia actually. And moreover, what I was thinking to tell was like, if GSF is in central way, it will be more difficult, but GSF is being splitted into different regional way, means like a particular regional leader from Asia can go and learn how student union works in Europe, or same likewise they can come back to Asia and learn how student movement works. So there can be an exchange of idea and cultures actually, and moreover the friendship and the bond develops, and the solidarity will be more coming from the heart than the words or the what to tell. letters or something of that. So it comes directly from the heart. So this was my important point actually. So the regional leadership can be good actually, and moreover Asia can also have an continental student organization if GSF has achieved the peak or something of that. Yeah, thank you. Solidarity from India.
Thanks a lot, Deva. And the floor is open. Whoever wants to come on the microphone, please raise your hand, or just come on the microphone if no one is there before you. I just wanted to quickly take the time to wait for people to raise a hand to summarize some of the things that were said in this conversation happening online on what is the significance of the Global Student Forum for your organization. And I think there's actually lots of things like exchanging ideas, but also exchanging people and kind of processes and practices. This is something that also Deva mentioned, and this is something that the GSF will be doing. So giving a chance for bilateral exchanges, for organizational exchanges, to get to know each other's reality, each other ways of working, and do much more. There are many activities in the pot on the making in the post-COVID-19 kind of global traveling possibilities. There is a lot on definitely promoting quality, inclusive, well-funded education for all. Again, exchanging, learning from each other, laying out the foundation for collaboration between young leaders. Definitely also an important mission. Promoting communication and organization between countries and organizations is also very, very important. So really there are a number of things that we mentioned and that I think are crucial. Is there anything else that you think is important for you and for your organization in terms of cooperation with the Global Student Forum? And on this note, I think we have Martin that wants to come on the microphone. Please, Martin, join us.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, and I would like to briefly say what is my impression of the potential use of the forces behind the Global Student Forum for my organization, which is the Student Council in Czech Republic, the main student union. I believe that despite there are many differences in preferences, what to solve, and approaches to problem solving in all our countries, there are definitely things that the youth around the globe view similarly. For example, I believe that we all want basic human dignity and, for example, fair elections. And we all should agree that falsification of election results is something unacceptable. We all probably want the world free from torture and genocide, of course, and maybe even the Sustainable Development Goals might be something that we all agree on in the end. So to sum up, as of now, I think that the GSF might be able to help with these fundamental values of dignity and democracy, and that is when my organization might turn to you, and I will support this. But I'm sure that as we go, many other and more specific areas will occur. And I believe that the United Voice of Students around the world is a tool that can be quite impactful in terms of, let's say, policy making, and that we now, as we gathered here, we need to discuss how to deal with it and where to put it to use. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Martin. And I think, and thanks also, Ahmad. I didn't see your message before. Now I can finally see it. We will definitely also, one of the things that was mentioned is the issue of SDGs, and also Martin mentioned it. That's also something we'll definitely look at. I'm also looking at Deva's comment on you started the campaign for first generation students, where you organized fundraising campaigns and supported the first generation students with scholarships and the Forum for Activism. You can share more information if you have links, if you have documents. You can also share them with us. We can give you emails to share things, and then we can circulate it among people. Also, feel free to post documents, discussion, things from your organizations in the Facebook event. so that everyone that was registered there and that responded can also see what you shared. So please do feel free to share all of that. And before we move on to the last bit of the discussion, which is really the bit on like what is that we have to work on, we want to know a bit more on what is that you are working on and what are the challenges in your region. And this, as you saw in the questions, was in two bits. One of the questions was a question that Rania, I don't remember, honestly, your name fully, tackled, which was the question on what is the role of, thank you, Ahmad, bye. See you next time, hopefully. We hope to see you in other events. And so the questions that we were looking at were, how can student movements contribute to combating modern forms of fascism and anti-democratic forces at large? So that's one of the questions we wanted to look at. The other question we wanted to look at was what are the most urgent social and educational justice issues in your national and regional context? And then the third question, which was also interesting for us to look at, is what student issues are receiving less attention during the COVID-19 period, but that you are putting a lot of attention on. So these are the kind of things that we want to hear a bit about from you, so that then we can move on to one of the last questions, which would be more around what should the priorities of GSF be? Because we read it in the email, but I just wanted to stress it once more. What we're doing today, this exercise of bringing up problems and solutions, will be reflected in our in GSF's work plan and strategic discussions as we go further. So please come on the microphone and share things, or use the chat, as also Daniela from Honduras did, sharing that in Honduras there is definitely a need to work further on SDG 4 on quality education. So that's also something that we can do together as GSF. And now I shut up. And yes, definitely, Daniela, you can come on the microphone if you want to share more. And I give the floor to Umut. I hope you're pronouncing your names fairly.
Yeah. That's correct. Hi, everyone. I'm Umut. I represent European Medical Students Association here. And it's surely a great pleasure and a very big honor to be here, actually. As European medical students, you actually do work on many topics, ranging from like vaccine hesitancy to LGBTIQ plus health and rights. But a topic that I actually want to underline here in this meeting that wasn't really signified before is climate change. It's a political issue as well. It has implications to parts of the world that are not playing a major role causing it. It's a multifaceted, it's a complex kind of a situation that is concerning to us as students, but more as the future generations of this planet. And yeah, I think like raising awareness and doing advocacy on topics like that on a multi-regional basis is really important for the work that we're going to be, I hope that we're going to be doing here as well. And yeah, that was it. I'm, again, so happy to be here.
Thanks, Umut. Definitely, the topic of climate change is very high on the agenda. So let's try to bring it also forward together. I'm seeing people to jump in. I also wanted to make a remark. Some of you made some fantastic videos that you shared with us, and they are published online. And some of the people who did these videos are also here in today's meeting. So it would be really interesting if some of you also wanted to jump on the conversation and expand on what you said in your videos. Camilo, I pass the word to you.
Thank you so much, Pina. I'm glad to be here and I'm honored to be here. I'm Camilo. I'm a Chilean student that studies in Italy, and I'm a med student too. I think that one of the most important things that we have to outline in this period is that how this pandemic has made clear that higher education has become a privilege and not more a right for everyone, and how this can't be more like a possibility to emancipate people from social inequities and from disparities. That's why we are trying also in Italy to work on what disparities are meant for students and how social conditions should be something considered for those who try to study in order to have a better future. And this is not just about a free of charge and quality education, but also the possibility of having dignity in social conditions. As a med student also, I think that I really think that we can see how also medical formation today is so important to have also a public right to free healthcare for everyone in a pandemic situation, which is something that is not more obvious in many countries, and how the cuts on education have determined also cuts on medical people working on public health, which means that poor people can't afford quality education and quality healthcare. That's why I think that in a global movement of students to regain the role of emancipation of culture and social conditions from which that everyone should be able to access to education is a fight that we can fight, and the link between medical formation and the right for healthcare has to be seen as not just a specific case, but also as an example on how education can be something that gets a better future for the whole society and without any disparities. So I'm really glad to be here and so emotional. So thank you all for the ideas brought up.
Thanks a lot, Camilo, for your inputs and contributions. Already seeing quite some claps. So I wanted to start spicing things up. So I'm going to bring in some people from the steering committee every once in a while, so that also what you can do, you can reflect on what people from the steering committee are proposing, or like what are the updates and what do you think, if do you think this is the right direction or not. So please feel free to come in and join them. I am going to give the word. I know, Michele, you raise your hand before Arman, but I'm going to give the word to Arman before, so that we don't break too many people from the same country in the same moment. So Arman, the floor is all yours.
Hi, thank you. Firstly, I would like to thank you for this great opportunity. My name is Arman Chula, and I'm representing the Association of Secondary School Students in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We gather every secondary school student together with the school student council, and we operate throughout the whole country. We aim to improve the status of secondary school students, and with 13 years of work, we've seen the importance of working together to truly see the fundamental problems of our peers and our status. One of the most urgent social justice issues is segregation that is systemized in our ethnocentric education in post-conflict Bosnia. Even with the negative effects that bad online school systems that were implemented at the beginning of the COVID crisis, where almost every student lacks proper fundamental education, where the government still doesn't put our education first, students unwillingly face segregation in schools that operate on the principle 2 schools under one roof. The principle of operating those schools is basically that because Bosnia is really ethnically diverse, you have Bosniaks and Croats at different sides that don't, by the rules of the school, have touch between one each other. Our initiative, our school fought against the opening of another school with that principle in time, Jajce, but there are 50+ schools that function that principle, like directly teach students that segregation between their peers is acceptable. I think that is the most urgent social justice issues in our country now.
Thank you, Armand. Sorry, I am seeing also Francois was one of the participants was messaging me instead of everyone saying like one roof, 2 schools is definitely not the kind of concept we wanna hear about here. So that's also definitely one of the topics we will be working on together, and that strengthen cooperation overall within regions, but also outside of regions. Before I pass on the word to Michele, and I hope your name is Michele. Yes, to Michele, and I know you will hate me so far, but please don't. I'm going to pass the word to Carmen, from our steering committee. Carmen, are you there? Let me see if you're there. Yes, you are.
I'm here.
So my question for Carmen, which is a bit of a question so that we bring in more input to the discussion, is what is the role of GSF in bringing and building a feminist response to COVID-19, and like, what does this feminist response to COVID-19 look like? Okay. And I want more women come on the discussion right after Carmen speaks, so that we can build on this.
Yes, I'm gonna speak in Spanish during my intervention. Do I need to do anything or just people should? Okay. Bueno, pues muchísimas gracias por la pregunta, Giuseppina. Buenos días, buenas tardes o buenas noches, depende de en qué parte del mundo estéis. En primer lugar, me gustaría dar las gracias a los compañeros y compañeras de GSF por la organización de este congreso y a los y las intérpretes por su increíble trabajo, y gracias también a todos y a todas las participantes. ¿Sí?
You need to click on Spanish in the interpretation.
Okay.
Sorry, because otherwise we hear both languages in English. Thanks.
Now? Vale. Bueno, muchas gracias por la organización, a todos los compañeros y compañeras de GSF de este congreso, también a los intérpretes por su increíble trabajo, y gracias también a todos y todas las participantes que estáis aquí por contribuir y reflexionar colectivamente en este Día Internacional del Estudiante. No quiero únicamente mencionar muchas de las violaciones de derechos humanos y derechos de las mujeres durante todo este tiempo de pandemia, pero también antes, sino reflexionar en cuál será una respuesta feminista a la pandemia. Creo que es importante primero analizar cuál ha sido la respuesta hasta ahora y por qué esa respuesta no ha sido feminista. En muchos países durante la primera ola se cerraron colegios e institutos y en algunos sitios estaba incluso prohibido pasear, mientras que, por ejemplo, muchas empresas y fábricas seguían produciendo y por lo tanto sus trabajadores se veían obligados a salir de sus casas. Comento esto porque es una forma muy sencilla de ver cuáles son las prioridades del sistema. El sistema en el que vivimos, que es un sistema capitalista, siempre tendrá como prioridad la producción. Es por ello que incluso ahora, durante la segunda ola que sufren muchos países, vemos cómo se tiene más en cuenta a grandes empresarios que a la sociedad civil. Vivimos en un mundo globalizado y capitalista, en el que los productos viajan kilómetros para ser vendidos y comprados, pero sin embargo hay países en los que aún no se tienen suficientes mascarillas, respiradores o medicamentos para toda la población. Una respuesta feminista es lo contrario a una respuesta capitalista. El feminismo no es una propuesta únicamente para las mujeres. El feminismo defiende construir sociedades igualitarias, más democráticas y donde los derechos estén garantizados para todos. Una respuesta feminista pondría la vida en el centro y no la producción. Eso es justo lo que no se ha hecho hasta ahora. Para dar una respuesta feminista es necesario que aumente el gasto social, contratando más médicos, más enfermeras y dotando de recursos a los servicios sanitarios. No sería necesario cerrar colegios, institutos y universidades si hubiera más profesores y si se pudieran reducir el número de estudiantes por clase. Garantizar servicios públicos y fortalecer el estado de bienestar es la única forma posible de salir de esta crisis sin dejar a nadie atrás. Desgraciadamente, ahora mismo en muchos países mucha gente solo tiene dos opciones: ser víctima del virus o ser víctima del hambre, que es en definitiva ser víctima del sistema. Necesitamos políticas feministas que hagan posible la conciliación para que madres y padres puedan cuidar de sus hijos o familiares sin ver amenazado su puesto de trabajo, así como una flexibilidad laboral que permita cumplir aislamientos y asegurar las medidas de protección en el ámbito laboral y educativo, aumentar la frecuencia del transporte público y facilitar servicios que eviten el aumento de contagios. Durante este año se ha hablado mucho de qué son los cuidados y los trabajos esenciales, algo de lo que las feministas llevamos hablando muchísimo tiempo. La COVID-19 ha confirmado lo que muchas mujeres ya habían dicho: el trabajo en casa es trabajo y además es un trabajo esencial. Por ello, ahora más que nunca debemos luchar por la igualdad. Esta crisis pone en riesgo la vida y no podemos proteger un sistema que prioriza el capital sobre la vida de las personas y la vida del planeta. No podemos defender la vida si no hay un planeta donde vivirla. Y como hemos visto, el sistema productivo actual pone en riesgo la vida del planeta y por ende la nuestra. Eva Perón dijo que donde existe una necesidad nace un derecho. Tenemos derecho como estudiantes y como sociedad a tener una vida que merezca la pena ser vivida. Para terminar, me gustaría decir que es de vital importancia que los y las estudiantes nos cuestionemos la forma de vida y las causas de esta crisis. Nosotros debemos estar más unidos que nunca, pero también debemos ser más críticos que nunca. Muchas gracias.
Thanks a lot, Carmen. We lost the last 30 seconds of your English translation. I hope people hearing in Spanish can hear me in Spanish. Can you give me a sign if you do? Wow. Yes? Cool. No? Is the translation working? No. Okay, Roshin and Victoria, if we can ask you to try to test, because I think the English to Spanish is not working. So, okay, the English-Spanish is back. Perfect. Thank you very much to the interpreters. So patient with us all the time. There was probably an internet connection issue. Victoria, thanks again for the interpretation. Now, finally, I can give the word to, first of all, Carmen, thanks so much. This was extremely inspiring. Lots of you have shared this in the chat. Please don't stop doing that in the chat. And while Carmen takes a bit more of compliments for her outstanding intervention, I pass on the word to Michele. Finally, it's your turn to speak. I'm not gonna hold on anymore.
Thank you, thank you. I am Michele Raiola from Italy, and I'm a comrade of Udum. Surely a pressing topic is the new coming out of the fascism and the anti-democratic alliances. In fact, at a time of political and institutional confusion like this, some people and ideologies that have characterized our historic journey, especially that of us Europeans, are coming out once again. They are part of those forces that move against the system in favor of the anti-system. The anti-system they share is nothing other than a word that, to increase its illegality, tries to make people believe that political and administrative institutions do nothing but good for themselves and harm their people. However, how can we combat this in our little realities? Our associations can certainly raise awareness about certain issues. They can bring knowledge and therefore, above all, make people conscious about the difficulties that policies face in taking certain sensible choices. So the most important action is without a doubt focusing on culture. Culture cannot be seen as a secondary branch of society. It is the foundation of our communities and identities. And as such, we are the first to have to defend it. Beyond representatives of young people and students, we are passionate and curious, like the young women and men protagonists of the events in 1939. So we are the legitimate masters of culture. And we should concretely and continuously encourage the meeting between young people and the political class to promote culture, the true one, even if it's cruel. A culture that has marked us and which continues to leave us a deep wound, a culture which should go much further into the contemporary world by analyzing more in depth which are the difficult realities of our times. We shortly passed from a predominantly proletarian society to another one whose individual wants to no longer be dependent on anyone. This desire of independence is bringing to a struggle all against all, a battle that is concealing the sense of equality upon which should be based all our societies. To remember the equality of people is important to keep in mind that the true one is possible thanks to the individual differences, which must be overcome to be really acknowledged. They must be overcome conceptually, but also concretely, both from the social and practical points of view. We should know all the realities of our society. So who better than us who have grown up in the arms of technology can be able to create a cultural link among the various realities of our territories. GSF could organize events in all our countries in order to make possible the spreading of experiences and cultures. We could talk about all our issues, such as SDGs, globalization and international commerce, education accessibility, but also historical topics and more. So let's roll up our sleeves and make it clear what we are made of. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thanks a lot, Michele. The waiting was worth it. I have to share. I'm going to pass the word to Francois now.
Hello, everyone. Just let me 1 second that I'm going to change for the Spanish translation, as I will be speaking in Spanish. Vale, creo que ahora se me escucha bien. Good. Hola, mi nombre es François Moreno. Soy el representante internacional de CANAE, Confederación Estatal de Asociaciones de Estudiantes de España. Hice uno de los vídeos de la campaña que se han ido subiendo a lo largo de estos días. Primero que todo, me gustaría decir que para nosotros, cuando empezó a formarse el proyecto de GSF, como miembros de OESU, nos ilusionamos muchísimo porque hablando con antiguos participantes de nuestra organización, nos trasladaron que era algo que se llevaba intentando hacer desde hace bastante. Era una ambición que se tenía de varias organizaciones internacionales el encontrarse juntas en un punto, ¿no? Y era algo que siempre había sido bastante difícil, primero que todo por las distancias geográficas, ¿no? Y segundo porque no se había dado el momento de unirse. Creo que el momento en el que ha surgido el GSF finalmente no podía haber sido mejor, porque era un momento en el que todo el mundo hemos estado experimentando una pandemia, que todos los países la hemos estado sufriendo y en la que hemos visto cómo más que nunca todos los países se han unido, ¿no? Tanto nacional como internacionalmente. Nosotros desde CANAE le pedimos a los gobiernos de todo el mundo que luchen por esos estudiantes que antes de que ya empezara la pandemia se enfrentaban a barreras de diferentes tipos para poder acceder a una educación de calidad en igualdad de condiciones. Está claro que ahora la situación ha empeorado muchísimo más. Un claro ejemplo lo podemos ver con las clases que se confinan porque ha habido algún positivo. Es decir, un padre o una madre que están trabajando, su hijo, alguien de la clase de su hijo ha dado positivo y al menos la política que se está siguiendo aquí en España es que toda la clase debe ser confinada y los padres deben de quedarse también en casa haciendo el confinamiento con los niños al haber estado en contacto cercano con ellos, ¿no? Al menos aquí se tiene la oportunidad de que los padres se cojan una baja laboral y puedan quedarse en casa hasta que tengan un resultado negativo de los test, o en el caso de que sea positivo siguen de baja hasta que hayan pasado en sí el virus. Sé que esto no es posible en todos los países y ahí es donde surge nuestra petición a todos los gobiernos del mundo, ¿no? Que se intente llegar a un punto en el que tanto la salud como la educación se encuentren. Muchas gracias.
Thanks a lot, Francois. And in the meantime, we're saying goodbye to a bit of people that are leaving. So we will try to kind of like slowly, very slowly move towards the wrap up. And for this, I am going to invite Marcelo, also from our steering committee, to share some of his perspectives, well, not only his own, but from his own experience, and also on behalf of Bia, who's also from the steering committee. What can we learn from Latin America in terms of how student organization and student movements can bridge with civil society and work together as stronger movements?
Hola a todos, es un placer estar acá con ustedes. Muchas gracias por el trabajo de mis compañeras y mis compañeros en la elaboración de este congreso. Sin duda es de los momentos que voy a atesorar en mi corazón por el resto de mis días y ver la cantidad de movimientos estudiantiles desde Europa, África, América del Norte, América del Sur, aquí reunidos. Créannos que genera más allá que una simple felicidad, sino que también genera un compromiso mayor, una responsabilidad mayor con los cambios que el mundo necesita. La perspectiva latinoamericana, me gustaría comenzar hablando un poco sobre la evolución que tuvo, hablar del pasado para comprender el presente y intentar proyectar algo hacia el futuro. Y es que la evolución del movimiento estudiantil latinoamericano es sin duda una de las cosas más interesantes a partir del año 97. A partir de 1997, en países como Brasil, como Argentina, como Chile, los movimientos estudiantiles empezaron a reclamar por más becas, es decir, que el Estado financiara o las universidades financiaran vía calificación académica. Y nosotros nos dimos cuenta en ese momento de que podíamos pedir más en el momento que se avanzó. En el año 2000 cambiaron los sistemas de acceso a las universidades. En el año 2002, por ejemplo, en Chile, cambió la forma en la cual se entendía una universidad, se entendía un colegio, se empezó a comprender que la educación no es un bien de consumo, sino que es un derecho. Y en ese mismo derecho, nosotros entendimos también que a nivel de la educación media, educación secundaria, educación escolar, como lo digan en sus distintos países, éramos la punta de lanza, el bastión para colocar políticas públicas, que en el fondo es lo que nosotros queremos hacer. Porque para nosotros no es solamente querer levantar banderas, querer hacer movilización, sino que es generar cambios porque la gente lo necesita, porque los compañeros y las compañeras lo necesitan. Entonces, en esa misma línea, nosotros empezamos a exigir cambios constitucionales en distintos países a nivel de la educación, y después en el 2011, a nivel regional, a nivel latinoamericano, empezamos a reclamar porque la educación sea gratuita y de calidad. A partir de eso también nos dimos cuenta de que teníamos un poder mayor que el que nosotros mismos creíamos, porque en toda esa construcción de discurso, en toda esa construcción de agenda pública, empezamos también a generar vínculos con los sindicatos de trabajadores, empezamos a generar vínculos con los trabajadores de la salud, empezamos a generar vínculos con los pensionados, empezamos a generar vínculos con todas esas mujeres y con la diversidad sexual. Entonces, nos dimos cuenta de que el poder que nosotros teníamos como sociedad civil era un poder unitario, un poder de unidad, una forma de hacer política. Y esa forma de hacer política era con los movimientos sociales en conjunto. Es decir, que todos nosotros íbamos por las mismas demandas. Y así es como en América Latina nos dimos cuenta de que las políticas públicas no solamente eran en educación las que necesitábamos, porque los humildes, los pobres, la gente más desposeída, no solamente tiene problemas de educación, sino también tiene problemas de salud, tiene problemas sexuales, tiene problemas en términos de pobreza. Y todas esas cosas nosotros fuimos atacándolas con cambios, por ejemplo, en el sistema de impuestos en Chile, cambios, por ejemplo, a nivel constitucional. Nosotros nos dimos cuenta de que necesitábamos pensiones dignas en todos los países, tanto en Perú como en Chile. Empezamos a generar un cambio político en Colombia, en Ecuador. Todos esos procesos que nosotros nos dimos cuenta partieron desde los estudiantes, partieron desde una voz desde los estudiantes. Y esos mismos estudiantes se dieron cuenta de que necesitamos más personas para poder hacer los cambios. Y entonces el vínculo que nosotros tenemos que generar con la sociedad civil no es solamente un vínculo de demanda, sino también un vínculo institucional. Porque no nos sirve de nada generar una agenda pública, una agenda que sea comunicacional, una agenda que sea compartida por todos si es que no está apoyada por todos, si es que no todos estamos hablando con los distintos políticos que hoy en día están en el Congreso, porque esa es la labor que nosotros tenemos, cambiar las condiciones de vida de la gente. Y para eso necesitamos juntarnos con todos los políticos, necesitamos juntarnos con todos los ministros, necesitamos generar presiones. Y en ese sentido hemos tenido distintas presiones, ya sea desde ocupaciones a localidades privadas, hasta, por ejemplo, manifestaciones de 2 millones de personas. Lo mejor que le puede entregar a América Latina al Global Student Forum es eso, es entregar la convicción, la responsabilidad y la experiencia de generar políticas públicas que mejoren las condiciones de vida de la gente. Hoy en día tenemos un gran desafío como Global Student Forum y es posicionarnos como esta alternativa institucional que genere esa expectativa de cambio. Nosotros necesitamos juntarnos el día de mañana con las autoridades públicas y políticas de todo el mundo, que en cada una de las regiones podamos avanzar en una agenda pública, pero también a nivel mundial en una agenda unida. Esa agenda común la tenemos que proyectar en un nivel comunicacional, en un nivel de sociedad civil y sobre todo en un nivel de cambio en políticas públicas. Entonces, más que nada, me gustaría agradecer la presencia de cada una y cada uno de ustedes en este espacio y que estoy totalmente abierto a escucharla y escucharlo el día de mañana si es que tienen algún tipo de pregunta, algún tipo de comentario o crítica, porque esta construcción es en conjunto y hay que entender que en conjunto muchas veces vamos a pelear, muchas veces vamos a discutir, pero siempre con la alegría y la convicción vamos a entender que no hay pan sin libertad y no hay libertad sin pan. Muchas gracias.
Thanks a lot, Marcelo. I have to agree with the chat again. Definitely a very powerful intervention. Seeing quite a bit of comments. If anybody is interested, we can ask to translate them into English, but I think it's fairly okay also to Google Translate. That's I became the fastest Google translator in the world. I switch very fast. I have shared in the chat, and I'm going to share again the Mentimeter because I have one last question for you. You hear me in Spanish? Sí. Yeah, I don't speak Spanish. I'm in the English channel. Maybe again there is an issue with.
Y te puedo oír en el canal de español, pero tú estás hablando inglés.
Sí, because can you hear us? Can you hear me in Spanish now? Can you hear me in Spanish now? Yes, perfect. Roisin is in a harsh situation with her internet connection, so I'm going to ask everyone to pay quite some patience with the translation. If you can join me on the Mentimeter quickly. I don't know if you have joined me and the Mentimeter is not moving, or if you haven't joined me. I'm pretty sure you haven't joined me. I have one last question for everyone, and you don't have to come on the Mentimeter. You can simply just come on the microphone. This question, I am going to now share my screen so you can all see it, is what are the main challenges in your region that you think we should be tackling together? And as I said, I am open to people writing on the Mentimeter, which doesn't really seem to be exciting, or for people to just come on the microphone. I'm gonna try to refresh this. Public free education, capitalism, democratization, anti-discrimination, government scholarships, definitely some of the ones we can all agree on. Wow, Mateo also wrote quite a lot of thoughts in the chat, so not on the Menti, but we can go back to them in the chat. Capitalism really seems to be leading as a main challenge in our region, something we really need to tackle together. If anybody wants to come on the microphone and share your thoughts on these, please do come on the microphone to share thoughts. Government accountability definitely is something that has been mentioned also before. Anti-discrimination, environmental issues, underdevelopment, study funding and scholarships, and there was also quite a lot more connected to scholarships and these topics. This is also something that's definitely super important for GSF to tackle, not the whole issue of student debt and how wrong is it that we need to indebt ourselves to be able to study and progress. So free education again. Anybody wants to come on the microphone and share a bit more about their challenges? Camilo, please do come on the microphone shortly.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry for re-intervening again. I just like to point out on this point that about capitalism and study fundings. I think that all of us has been asking for more fundings in our countries for the access to education and the possibility to study with the best conditions we could have. I think that it's time to say things since the pandemic has also shown that from a sanitary crisis, there's also an economic crisis. And for the first time in history, maybe it's time to tackle capitalism by asking for this crisis to be paid by rich, and so to have see how redistribution of wealth should be going to the possibility for all to study and the possibility for all to have a good home, the possibility to have transports, the possibility to have also an ecological sustainable life, which is something that in the moment which someone has social issues is even more difficult if the system doesn't allow it. So I really guess that today asking for rich people to pay for this crisis is not a slogan, but is something that our generation that has seen the debt, has seen how being precarious and being also not able to have a stable future is one of the things that we should ask together as a global movement, since like Marcelo said in his intervention, which I'd like to thank you, since it's also from my country, the movement of people asking not only for education, but starting from education to social wealth and tackling capitalism and social inequities should be one of the best aims that we could work on. And this means just talking about material conditions and what the people need to live with dignity and fulfill what they'd like to do in their lives. And this, I think, it's also something we should start also to link to the possibility to live as we want to with our identities, sexualities, and free from patriarchy too. I mean, smash capitalism and smash patriarchy should something that every educational fight should have as a basis. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Camilo. I saw Amanda, your hand was up, then your hand was not up anymore. You wanna come on the microphone?
Hi, Pina. I can talk now. Can I talk now?
And then we give the word to Kalel.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda. I represent the National Association of Postgrad Students in Brazil. So it's not really easy to talk about the challenges in education of Brazil, because nowadays we are fighting every day against the fascism of Bolsonaro. So we have a hard work to do here in education. I think we have two big problems in Brazil. The first one is science denial. Bolsonaro have a policy based in flat earth or this kind of politics of Trump. So Bolsonaro is against university professors and scientists. There are some science and students work to discover the COVID vaccine or trying to save the Amazon, but Bolsonaro is against of this voice of science. This voice of science is being attacked by the president. And the second problem is the economic politics of Bolsonaro. Here in Brazil, we have a big crisis, social, politics, and economic crisis, and the educations are being cutting the investments of education and science. So it's really important think about the fashions in Brazil, because this is a kind of politics so common in other countries. So we have paid attention what happened here. So this space is really important for us. And thank you for this Congress.
Amanda, I'm going to pass on the floor to Kalel. I don't know how to read your names, but I am trying. Kalel, no, don't really know. Do you want to come on the microphone? Maybe I'm saying it so badly that it is not recognizable, that I'm...
Buenas tardes, hermanos. Soy Caleb, director de Relaciones Internacionales de la UBS, la Unión Brasileña de Estudantes Secundários do Brasil. Estou muito feliz em estar com vocês acá, um dia muito importante para todos nós outros, um dia de comemoração, de felicidade, pero também de muita luta. No Brasil nós outros estamos enfrentando um governo Bolsonaro altamente fascista, altamente golpista, que não representa os anseios do povo. E nós outros estamos em luta com nossos irmãos para que juntos possamos cada dia lutar em defesa do povo por uma educação mais justa para todos os estudantes. Neste dia, só quero parabenizar a organização desse congresso para que nós outros possamos a cada dia mais discutir uma educação que represente os anseios de estudantes de continente, de América Latina, de Europa, de outros continentes. E juntos continuaremos lutando por esta educação mais justa para nós outros. Forte abraço, hermanos. Continuamos lutando.
Thanks a lot. There were a bit of challenges with the audio and the interpretation, but I hope we still got part of the message. So I just wanted to, again, there are no more raised hands. So I'm gonna ask a question to one of the people in the steering committee. Amilcar, are you here? Yes, you are, perfectly. Right there. So some of the things that you said, like some of the main challenges that also came now in the word cloud, we saw them together. There were some words including white supremacy, supremacism, capitalism, anti-discrimination, and a lot of issues around these. So my question to you would be, what do you think we can learn from the Black Lives Matter movement, and how can we work in support of those struggles?
Thank you very much, Comrade Pina, and much respect and big up to everyone who is taking part in this Global Student Congress. Before I begin, I have to invoke the names of Walter Rodney, Claudia Jones, Jose Carlos Maria Tegui, Maria Elena Moyano, Jacqueline Kreft, Eric Williams, Steve Biko, the visionaries of revolutionary Cuba who saw education as a tool for liberation. And this contribution today to respond to your question is fundamentally in solidarity with the youth and students fighting for democracy and peace in Peru and peace and safety in Haiti. So racist violence has been at the foundation of the global economy, in which colonial conquest, plunder, and exploitation violated and continues to violate the bodies and minds of women and men through white supremacist ideology and force. Since May of this year, our societies have had to reckon with the legacy of racism, racist violence, and the exclusion of people of African descent from equal participation in social and economic life. At the same time, societies grappled with the COVID-19 pandemic, which claimed thousands of lives daily and posed an existential and political question to people everywhere. In what way do we deserve to live? In the wake of these protests, led by youth and students, educational institutions, particularly higher education institutions, were called upon to account for issues of historical racism and the unequal status of faculty and students of African descent. Curricula which marginalized the scholarship of African-descended women and men, racist bias in the enforcement of disciplinary streams among students by teachers, the lack of institutional support for Black studies departments of research, and the delegitimization of the concerns of Black student unions were some of the issues that came to the fore. In universities, the Black Lives Matter movement exposed the limitations of voices that purported that social and institutional changes were only possible through reformism, public conversation by experts, and the deliberations of high-level decision makers. The Black Lives Matter movement has reminded us of the power youth and students have to create new spaces for a new political imagination that can organize around our ideas for society, education, and the global community in a way that is relevant to us. Another achievement of the Black Lives Matter movement was to challenge the notion that racism was limited to personal prejudice and attitudes. This approach led to institutional responses that privileged managerial and profit-driven diversity and inclusion training at the expense of wider systemic critique on the ways that racism is ideological, organizes institutional practices, influences epistemology and pedagogy, and to a large extent, historically shaped the physical landscapes and architecture of our campuses. In response to this, some institutions have committed to expand the opportunity for African-descended, racial minority, and BAME students. Post-colonial societies, however, have shown us that expanding educational opportunities to marginal groups by itself is a positive step, yes, but it does not necessarily bring radical change to encourage meaningful inclusion of historically excluded groups. The expansion of opportunity to education without challenging the stratification of the colonial education system meant that a minority and elite group of students would access elite education opportunities, and the mass of students were relegated to under-resourced educational institutions. This development would strengthen the myth of meritocracy, the illusion of fairness and equality of opportunity, and naturalize academic underperformance of certain social groups. For this reason, the conversations on racial justice from regions such as Latin America and the Caribbean, Africa and Asia offer critical historical lessons and political context to the global movement for racial justice and the transformation of our education systems. As I close, in the Global Student Forum, anti-racism is one of the core organizing principles that shapes the politics and practices of our institution. We support anti-racist movements that promote decolonial thought and praxis, which defends the dignity of Black lives, indigenous rights, ethnic minorities, migrant communities, and people anywhere who are denigrated on the basis of their skin color, ethnic origin, and way of life. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Amilcar, for sharing this, again, very powerful intervention. I'm going to take one of the kind of suggestions that came to the chat. I think it was also Matteo, but also many of you said, you know, like one of the roles of the Global Student Forum is to push for democracy and for democratic processes. And it was also in the word cloud, this was brought up by many people in the discussion. Last but not least, Marcelo brought up also the perspective on Latin America. There's really a lot of suggestions and like inputs for discussion. So one of my questions to Giuseppe and Ankit, so we've got a duo power at this time, is like, what is the importance of school student unions and student unions in the development of meaningful democratic participation?
Thank you very much, Pina. In reality, first clarification, we are talking about how to go towards a better real democracy, so better participation, so not just following propaganda or other slogans that could be said as democratic, while in reality are supporting completely different kind of systems, and I mean also from eminent democratic countries. Because, well, from our perspective, of course, the first thing to understand is that education must be considered as a first playground for democracy. So schools, universities should be the first step of the process of democratization or of increase of democratization of society. In particular, I will speak about schools because if we look at school, it's the first moment in a person's life in which you live as a citizen, you live in community with others, you live sharing thoughts, feelings, but also conditions, social conditions, social issues together with the others and out of your, of the more traditional and protected spaces of family, or just of the private dimension that many people live before entering any kind of communitarian thinking, or just a space that is social and is shared with other people. And the first problem is that school must be seen as a place where democracy must be experienced directly by people. So which is your impact on your living environment, and in this case your working, your studying environment? And so the idea that democracy can be learned just by books or by, that can be taught by people is wrong, because democracy can be learned only through experience, through direct experience. So, for example, for students already from schools, something that is neglected in the majority of countries of the world, unfortunately, it's important to elect their representatives. So experiencing electoral democracy, to work with the institutions that rule the schools and the school institutions, but also to experience self-organizing, the right to free independent organizing, and to organize your life together with your peers without external control, but based on your feelings, your thoughts, and the common ideas that are developed by your community, your student community. So this starts already by school. And the problem is really that now we see this opportunity as limited also in many countries by law. So law does not allow people, for example, to meet in their schools and to organize in their schools, and it's a big problem. Or people are denied to elect their representatives because the school students are seen as pupils, as young people that cannot understand things, as like little children. It's wrong. It's deeply wrong. And it's really important that we fight for law recognition of these rights, but also for teachers and headmasters and educational workers to be included in a process of real implementation of democracy in schools, because we start from schools, but then we move to society. If you are already an active student, you are a student activist, or just involved in your democratic participation mechanisms at schools, it's easier than to be an active citizen. And if we teach these values through concrete action, and we give opportunity to people to self-organize and to create their social environment at school and their values together as schools, as communities, we are giving instruments for society to be more democratic not just in the future, but also now, because also another part of the society can be included in the processes and can be, as we also were saying now, fighting against extremism, fighting against neo-fascism, fighting for human rights more on a broader sense. So now I will leave the word to Ankit.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Giuseppe, and thank you for everybody that's still around. And I'm going to transition right from there. School students' unions are absolutely vital in the democratic development of our societies. When I see students like Giuseppe, like Alex Sibel, and like Greta Thunberg out in the streets protesting for the things that we believe in, I see future citizens that are truly engaged in the democracies that we are hoping to build, that we are working to build today, that we will engage in tomorrow. It helps normalize the inclusion of diverse voices in decision-making processes that students can carry with them for the rest of their lives, that we can carry with us for the rest of our lives. And therefore, the definitions of diversity can't just be limited to including women and including people of color and Black and Indigenous voices. And trans folks, but also just looking at diversity in the sense of age demographics, including younger voices along with older voices, because even though we are learning, we are also contributing. The same way our professors and our teachers don't stop learning once they become teachers. The same way we don't stop producing while we are still students. Education has always been about building a better citizen of the world. Engaging in democratic values would help empower the movement in higher education as well. As students from the schools go from schools and come into universities, that would make the university students movement so much stronger. In my first year, if I didn't have to learn the ropes and understand what the hell a student union was, then my participation in the democratic processes of Canada would have been so much stronger as a migrant in this country. Right? And that just extends further. If I had the opportunities to participate in more direct democracy as a high school student, then I would today be a far more productive, far more active, and would be a far shorter timeline for my active participation in democracy. The participation in democracy is delayed as we don't include students, more so school students and then university students. Also, being in universities assumes that you have the privilege and the power and the ability to access education at this level. So at school levels, where there's a lot more public education, I think there's a huge opportunity that is being missed by not organizing school students. Finally, as school students engage in democratic processes in universities, it would make it such that the student movement takes a step forward towards empowering our youngest, not just as leaders, but simply as active and engaged citizens. Empowering school students thereby creates an active citizen that participates in our democracy way beyond the ballot. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ankit. Thanks a lot, Giuseppe. I'm going to really try to, as Ankit said, there is 44 people who were strong enough to push through this very interesting and inspiring, actually, 2 hours and something. It's really been great, great discussion, and I think it proves that like there is so much thought that needs to be put into these processes that we're not going to get easily tired of that, and that we can survive very long Zoom discussions because it's motivating, it's inspiring, and it's really an incredible source of ideas and intelligence for the Global Student Forum. So definitely, as we said in the chat, in the event and in the invitation, this will feed into the creation of the plan of work of the 2021-2023 work of GSF. So we will be in touch. We have your emails, and we will be contacting you in the future for to get more of your opinions. Let me just close by taking like 2 or 3 of the main things that I grasp from this. So definitely, to put it in Amilcar's words, GSF can really be a space to create a new space to create new imaginations. It can be a physical and a metaphorical space free of fascism, of patriarchy, where we practice decolonial thinking, decolonial practices, where racial and gender justice are practiced in reality, and where we really do much more than just promoting democratic thinking, but where we practice democratic, transparent governance, and where we are an inspiration to the others. And when we, as our colleague from the Caribbean said, we do practice from the very, very bottom, not to be tokenistic, and to really strive for real participation and inclusion of everyone. So I think this was kind of like my main takeaway. I'm sure all of you took different takeaway from this discussion, and it would be very interesting to hear them. So please engage with us on Instagram, on Facebook, on email. We're gonna leave the email of the steering committee in the box so that you can get in touch with them. And the website will be up soon, so you will find everything there. And with that, I just wanted to thank immensely everyone, and thank particularly the person I'm about to pass the word to, who is Sebastian. Sebastian, thanks a lot for all the work you have put into putting this together. I'm sure I can say this on behalf of everyone. So I think there is no better person to close this first Global Student Congress. So Sebastian, the floor is all yours. Take the credit and enjoy the moment of happiness on behalf of everyone.
Thank you very much, Pina, for your kind words, and thank you also for your stellar facilitation of this interactive part of today's conference. Not only the participants that made it through till here are very admirable, but also you for keeping your energy up in this. Big thank you to all of you as speakers and participants, not only for your brilliant intervention today, but for your time and your support in this radically new political project that we can build together. As Pina already said, those who consented to GSF using your email addresses in the future, we will keep you up to date with opportunities in the coming months while GSF is further defining its structures, its processes and activities for 2021. And I can assure you that the whole core team around the steering committee and the leadership of the member platforms will continue to work tirelessly to create a movement that is strong and resilient and benefits its members and our constituency, the students' community at large. We will also take all of the discussion points into account when convening to reflect on today's event for the day. I think there is nothing left to say, but thank you and have a great rest of your day. Thank you also one more time for the stamina of our translators who did a great job today. And let's keep in touch. Take care, stay safe, and talk soon. Goodbye.
Bye, adiós.
Thank you for coming, everybody.
Adios. Ciao, ciao. As you leave, you can
Presto.
say goodbye in your own language as you leave the room so that we know you are still alive.
Ciao.
Adios.
Ciao. Que les vaya bien.
Buonanotte, adios. Adios.
Ciao.
Auf Wiedersehen and do widzenia. Auf Wiedersehen.
Goodbye.
Que les valga bien.
Ciao, Ruth. Also, thank you to the colleagues from OBESU who all joined. Thank you for the overtime. It will be compensated. Goodbye.
Thank you to the interpreters for the amazing job.
Muchísimas gracias. Ha sido increíble.
Okay, I'm going to... slowly.
We are still live. Bye.
Sorry.